Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Now, I'm sure everybody has heard the mainstream story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. As a youth, when his people left, he went to the temple and broke all the idols, leaving only the big one, and then placing the axe that he used to break all the small ones on the big one. What I'm going to do here in this lesson is speak about the Quranic narrative. Was this actually what happened? We're going to go in detail into the language of the Quran, the context, and we're using tafsir al-Quran bil-Quran, because the way to understand the story in the Quran is to get the whole picture from other sections in the Quran. So the common narrative is that it was a youth who wanted to rebel against his people. Now, firstly, I want to speak about the sources of these stories. Where do we find this story? Obviously, we find them in tafsir literature. Sheikhs will mention these stories, books. I mean, those who study, for example, even Arabic grammar, the widespread book, Qasasun Nabiyyin, the stories of the prophets. The first chapter in the first book is Man Kasara al-Asnam, who broke the idols. And the story obviously is of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So the concept of him breaking the idols is part of every Muslim's belief. So I understand there'll be pushback. Are there sources that also mention this? Yes, there are. There are Jewish sources. The Old Testament has, you could say, in our terminology, tafsir. Now, the narrative of Ibrahim alayhi salam smashing the idols is found actually specifically in the Midrash Rabbah. Now, I'm going to mention what's mentioned there. It says, he took a stick in his hand, broke all the idols, and put the stick in the hand of the largest of them. So this is an earlier source, and likely the Quranic interpretation was influenced by such sources. And this will become more apparent when we discuss linguistics. However, the most important thing is that we are to be guided by the actions of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now, there have been in history, actually, Muslims desecrating things that are revered in other religions. The common one is what the Taliban did. I would say that caused a lot of tension, and possibly what happened in Myanmar with the Muslims that may have fueled it. Now, one could very simply take the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam and say, well, it's okay to do that. He broke the idols. So it does have repercussions if we believe this story. Is this the best course of action? And what's the point of breaking idols if the idols of the internal, of the mind, are still there? Just imagine in the early stages of Islam and someone went up to the Kaaba and started to smash the idols. What do you think would happen?
He is mocking us! Get him!
So when you break idols, you're not going to change people's minds. In fact, you're going to create hostility. It's not something done by a person who calls to Allah in the best way. وَلَا تَسُبُّوا الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. Do not insult those they invoke other than Allah, lest they insult Allah. So that's a command, not to insult their gods. And if we take this as a command to the believers, and then the example of Ibrahim smashing the idols, that's a clear contradiction. Everything that Allah mentions about the prophets is an example for us. We're told to follow the millah of Ibrahim. Part of this millah is the way he conducted himself and the way he conveyed the truth. So I do believe that the story has been oversimplified. It's just of Ibrahim going and smashing the idols, and then they become hostile, and then they want to kill him. And we're told, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Do not reflect over the Quran. So what I'm doing is what the Quran demands that I do, is to make tadabbur. And I specifically went through the words of the Quran in this story and how they're used in the Quran. Allah talks about the stories of the Quran being an ibrah. You get the word ubur, which means a crossing that you cross over, whether it's a bridge or a path that you cross over. And that's actually what ibrah is. It's a lesson that takes us from a course of action, of an understanding, and makes us go into something which is rightly guided, and that is the best course of action. That's what the stories, and this including this story, does. It actually teaches us the proper da'wah techniques. So you want proper da'wah technique? It's not in Speaker's Corner. It's right here in the Quran. Ibrahim alayhi salam. And so we're going to be learning his technique, inshallah. People will be wary. What's this person saying? That he didn't break the idols? There's clear ayat that he broke the idols. That's what I want to explore, because are there clear ayat? There's only 2 ayat in the Quran, which I would say are interpreted to mean he broke the idols. Not that he broke the idols. Nothing definite. For example, we find in Surah Al-Anbiya, فَجَعَلَهُمْ جُذَاذًا إِلَّا كَبِيرًا لَهُمْ. So he made them into fragments. That's how it's been translated, into fragments. Also, there's another ayah in Surah Al-Safat, فَرَاغَ عَلَيْهِمْ ضَرْبًا بِالْيَمِينِ. Darb, obviously, they would say means to hit, and bil-yamin, with your hand, your right hand. But actually, that ayah has been interpreted in different ways. And one of them actually is more consistent with other parts of the Quran. So we'll talk about that also. They're the 2 main ones. But there's nothing that is definite that he broke the idols. So we need to be very careful with the stories. We need to reflect deeply about these stories. And that's what I'm going to leave you with, inshallah. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. If you would like to access our free courses and download our study material, you can register at QuranicArabicOnline.com to begin your journey to understanding the language of the Quran.